So this week, we're in the third week that we're learning this maamar. And we'll probably finish it next week, but just the topic of this week is really beautiful. Beautiful topic. We're in middle of Ois Dalet. We're learning a maamar from Tשכב, ונגלה כבוד Hashem. And in this Ois, the Rebbe presents what is the shoydish of the nefesh and what is the shoydish of the guf. And then in Ois Hey, we're going to bring it together. So where we finished last week, right? The Rebbe, right? A drop more context, just a tiny little bit. Tiny bit more context. The Rebbe asked 3 questions at the end of Ois Gimel with regards to why it is that the neshama, that dafka, neshama and the guf together are going to experience Elam Haba. The Rebbe asked, firstly, how could it be? The 3 questions were like very nuanced. The reason why right now Gan Eden is without a neshama, is without a guf, is because the guf is limited. So how could it be that the ultimate reward is right? And what is it about the guf that the revelation could only be right? And then how is it greater? Whatever. It's like nuanced questions. So the Rebbe began by expressing what is the shoydish of nefesh ha'odom, nefesh ha'behema. There's daled raglei hamerkov. So just to speak a little bit about this for a minute in the context of this maamar. Nefesh ha'odom is the spiritual part of us. That's our ruchnius. That's the part of us that's looking for a likus. That's the part of us that makes us human. You know, we're not an animal. Ruach ha'odom ha'olam. That part of us is, you know, like what it says in Chazal about Moshe Rabbeinu, from his waistline up, he's Elikim, right? Ish Elikim. From the waistline down, he's a Ish. So the Nefesh HaOdam, that's the waistline up. All the anything edel about the person, anything refined about the person. So when we say that the refinement of the person, where does it come from? It comes from the Daled Raglei Hamerkava. What does it mean? In Atzilus, the light of Hashem is too powerful and too neutral to say that, that's where we come from. But in the Raglei Hamerkava, they have characteristics. It's an Elam HaBriya. So meaning, spirituality has a form. And B'Hishtalshalus, we have that in us. And that's our neshama. So it's like a direct ishtalshalus. Where do we come from? Even the nefesh habahamis, the passion of the nefesh habahamis, whatever spiritual part that the nefesh habahamis has, where does it come from? It's all ruchni, right? You take 2. If we can imagine that we take 2 sleeping people, we don't know anything about them, and we're going to speculate about their capacity when they're awake. We don't know them. We don't. Right? I'm not talking about, we're going to see their muscles. Right? Suddenly, one of them is a lion and one of them is a coward. Why? Because that's all ruchnius. So the ruchnius is a direct link, a direct chain, level to level into who we are. Now, in the second half of Dalet, he's going to talk about Sheidish HaGuf. Sheidish HaGuf can't, even if our Guf, it cannot be a direct
because this is physical.
Chain, because it's physical. Case closed. And everything that's physical existence, it can't be directly a chain, a link.
It's got to go through something.
Something had to happen. So let's see how he says it. Okay? You missed the introduction, and I'm not going to. I'm just kidding.
It's fine.
No, it's not fun.
Give him a knas.
That's the knas. No, just kidding. I'm going to try to.
I mean, I'm sure
I'm
I
going to try to loop.
before.
I'm going to try to loop in. That's very confident of you.
No, I'm only kidding.
I only say I'm sure I didn't learn. Not I'm sure I did.
No, I'm also sure.
Let's take a look. You see page 373? Kol Zeh, whatever was said until here, when we talk about where our neshama comes from, spirituality could be directly linked. It's true. And the Sheirish of the Nefesh HaBamis and the Nefashas HaBalei Chayim are from Dalet Chayis HaMerkov. You know, there's that famous word. It's like in the Musar circles. They say that if Darwin would have met Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, he would have realized that we did not evolve from monkeys. Right? If you see the Eliki, you see a divinity in a person, you would understand that.
You're in Africa.
Yeah. So you see, we see me ke'amcha Yisrael. There's mamish. It's a shtalsos from Merkava Olyena. Kivon shanafoshes hem ruchniim. Lachein l'shtalsos l'bchinas haMerkava Olyena. Aval is havus gufes hanevroim, but a body. The guf ha'adam. Any yachaliz b'derech shtalsos. That doesn't work. It doesn't matter how many processes and changes and shifts and whatever. There's no such machine that you put it on, that there's input on one side, ruchnius, and the output on the other side is gashmius. Yeah. There's no such thing.
You gotta put paper in the copy machine.
Yeah. This house gashmis and ruchni is in whatever form, any gashmi, the most refined gashmis and the most low ruchnius. You gotta be the biggest miracle maker to do such a thing. Ella. So therefore, where's a goof from? Sheirish his havos yesh me'ayin hu. It's Masha Ola B'Rtzeni Aposhut Sheyis Havon Nevroim. The Eibush there, it's the Eibush has Aliyas HaRotzin. The Rotzin of Hashem, V'hu B'chinas Eire Yisov HaSeviv Kolam. The Rotzin of Hashem is Seviv. We learn in Chassidus, Ba'arichas, in a human being, Rotzin is Hatoyas HaNefesh. Rotzin doesn't have a particular organ in the body. It's the whole being. With the Eibishter, the spheres are particular. But the Ratzon, that's beyond everything. It's the Nefesh itself. And by the Eibishter himself, that's what we call Seviv Kalam. So Seviv, Hashem's wills physical existence into being. How does it actually come to be? That the Eibishter and the Kalim are one. It's really, Oir is Me'en Amor. Since Hashem could do it, the Oir could do it, etc. So it's through the Kalim that Hashem creates Yesh Me'ayin. Kivan Shemisyached Bohem Ihu. Since the Eibishter is in the Kalim, Oir Ein Soif Baruch Hu, Sha'oir Hu Ke'en Amor. What is the Moir? The Moir is Hashem. And why is the Eibishter the one that could create? The Because Mitziusa Hu Me'atzmusa, he's the only true existence.
You can send the Tanya.
No. In Igeres HaKodesh.
Yeah.
The Eibishter's existence is unconditional. Because he's the only true existence. Because he's the only true existence. He could bring other things into V'lachein, right? Hu levade v'keichev yecholte lahavis yesh me'ayin v'etes hamuchlet k'mavur b'igeres HaKodesh. Clear that Rebbe Mamish.
Understand what we need to. What's the whole?
Zero gamkein masha kosu.
Yeah.
What is the meaning? Kulam b'chachma asisa. The Rebbe is very clear. Remember, b'chachma means with chachma. Who is the creator? Seivit kalam. He uses chachma as a tool to shape, to create hainu. Shekedei liyes ribui v'yes chalkos hanevroim kulam. In order to be all existence, nislabe sharotzen ha'elyin b'chachma. Shehi reishis ha'sfiris. She'al yodom, through it, nasa ribui v'yes chalkos hanevroim. But look what he says now. Ve'al yedei zeh, through chachma osisa, you, Seviv Kol Almin, were the one who made it. Ata dafke, hainu haratzna ha'elyin, not the chachma. It was with chachma, through chachma. But who's using it? Who's the uman? Who's the craftsman? That's Seviv Kol Almin. Shehu ha'eses his havas hayesh ha'gashmi b'chinas yesh me'ayin v'loi b'derech ishtal sh'luskuk. V'hainu she's havas hayesh, physical existence, who mi bechinas ihu dafka. It's from the Eibishter. Elo. Whenever I sit in a shir and I feel that someone is uncomfortable with what's being said, so I don't know, I'm just putting it out in the ear, I go back to say what the Alter Rebbe says in Sharichut V'Amuna. Remember, Hashem can't be understood. Right? In other words, less machshava tfisabeh. Oh, not only Hashem, his midos, just like Hashem, less machshava tfisabeh. Hashem's midos are less machshava tfisabeh. Being that Hashem created the world, we can't get a grip on it. That's why there's such resistance that it doesn't make sense. Midas HaChesed of Hashem is Hashem created the world. No. It makes more sense. 250 billion years, that makes more sense. Because if it's Hashem created the world, we can't wrap our head around it. Because las machshava tfisabeh. That's why there's such, it's almost like there's an aversion. Because there is an aversion. Because it's the midas of Hashem. The midas of Hashem are las machshava tfisabeh. Ela. Shem islabesh. So who is the creator? Ihu. And he's mislabesh in chayohi, v'garmohi, in the eiris, in the kelim. Chayohi is chokhmah. Because in chokhmah really there are no kelim yet. Really in chokhmah it's all
But then how's it chokhmah if it's not?
That's why we learned in Likutei Torah, Hashamayim Mesaprim, the Zohar says, that it's
Misaprim transparent.
Right, translucent, right. It's Zoya, it's Evan Sapir.
So it's not
because really Chachma is not a real keli.
Okay.
Yeah. V'garmohi hu bechinas midis e malchus. Then there's the kelim. The kelim, even Bina is a but Zohar malchus. It's real kelim. She'al yadam.
Chachma is bittul. It has to be translated. Otherwise, it's not chachma.
Right. Shal Yodam, even in our experience, the way chachma works, it's completely objective, and really, it's the area of knowledge is showing you. You're seeing it, right? There's like a window, whatever, a component. Shal Yodam Nase Ribui v'yes Chalkos HaNevroim Kanal. It's through Midas and it's through Malchus. V'nimtza. So look how clear that. everything that we learned in Likutei Torah, you know, in Vayamcha, Vayarivecha, in Eker, and whatever. And every once in a while we have these ma'amorim about eating and mitzvah. The Rebbe here is going to make it. It all falls into place. Klor. So the Rebbe benimmt. Sheirish haguf hu l'mayla misheirish hanefesh. The sheirish hanefesh the chol hanivroim is a direct link. Is b'derech ishtalshalus mimala kol alma. Sheirish haguf the chol hanivroim she'eni b'derech ishtalshalus is yesh me'ayin. So it's seviv kol alma. Omnam, however, seviv kol alma is haverak etzem chemer guf ha'odam. It's the matter of the guf. The guf ha'bal chai. I see in my head I'm skipping a step. V'chein guf ha'tzemer. It's like physical existence. Look what he says. Avaloi ma'shaguf mishtane mikatnos legadus. The growth. That's why I was saying Shabbos. Everything that happens to you, in you, that's you already. That's your avodah. You make healthy life choices. You make poor life. It's all visible. Come, show me your teeth. You know what I mean? Like that's it. That's mamali. Physical existence that you exist. That's saving. But growth, development, that's all happening in mamali. Ki hagidul mikatnas lagadlus eini ve'efin shel ischachus yesh me'ayin. Benasa idei nefesh hatzemachas she'im mebchenas hamazel sheberokia. It's a constellation. Gemeinder Azal shehuva b'igeres hakodesh ein l'cha esav l'mata she'en le'mazel l'mayla ha'makabe ve'en le'gdal hainu she'gidul haguf is also mamali. Ve'rak is havus etzem chemer haguf yesh me'ayin hu m'chenas seviv kol alma. So now the Rebbe is going suited, organized. What do we have here as a conclusion? We'll go straight into the next place. The Rebbe says, summary. The guf and the nefesh have two different sources. We can unpack a little this Indian, but all of us, we learn chassidus, we understand. The guf, it was created, yesh me'ayin. We understand what yesh me'ayin is, that there's a disconnect from the source and the creation.
It's like hardware and software.
That's the way they... Right, but the way yesh me'ayin works, just like in birth, that a person doesn't remember their moment of birth. The process of yesh me'ayin is that the end result happens at a distance from the source. The source it's somewhere else. It's b'derech richuk. It's necessarily
To be touchable.
Right, like the seed disintegrates. Right? והנה, כיוון שהגוף ונפש יש לכל אחד שיש בפני עצמו, שהנפש שורש מבחינת ממלא כל העם, והגוף שורש מבחינת סבב כל העם, and so now we got a problem. How do you bring them together? כדי ליאס חיבור הנפש עם הגוף, צריך ליאס איזה עניין שיקש להם יחד, they're so different. How do you connect them? They're in other words, why, I'm sorry to bring this in a mind by Chassidus, why was it important for the guy who wrote the book to say men are from Mars and women are from Venus? Mars and Venus, why? Like, try to make a serious title. You know what I mean? Is it a real book or it's a joke? We're from Mars and Venus, right? But the point is, we're so different. In the root, it's because of...
We're so far from the...
Aliens.
Right. It's not like, because you like it when the air conditioner is higher and she likes it when it's lower. No, whatever. You know what I mean. Right? It's b'shoirish. The guf and the nefesh are inherently, from their origin, they're different. So how do you bring them together? You need something. And remember, the guf is coming from Seviv. So now you got to go higher than Seviv. Where are you going to go now? You know what the answer is going to be? You know what the magic is? It's food. We always knew food was magic. Right? Let's see. I didn't look it up. I wanted to, but so here it becomes so simple. What is food? Are just one step higher on the ladder in the shoydish of physical matter. In physical matter, you have Deimim Zemei Achai Medaber. So you go up one level, so it's higher. They're from the same planet. Shal Yodom Ba'iri Tischaber Anefesh Lachis Saguf Shahari Im Lo Yoichal Yemi Yamayim Yachol Shuv Kechayso. You get weaker. Ta'ad Sheberabis Hazman Deheder Achil Shsia Tepora Denefesh Min Aguf Lagamri. A person will pass away. Berak Al Yidei Achil Shtia Tischaber Anefesh Lachis Saguf. Be reconnected. Hine Tzayir Ha'adam B'Mazim B'Shvil Chibur Anefesh Im Aguf. The Rebbe says something very interesting here. We haven't learned this idea in any of the Ma'amorim that we learned about food. He says that when you eat food, the food has to be dead. In other words, your main energy is from the matter of the food.
It's organic.
It's not from the life of the food. It's not like, oh, you swallowed a living plant, and now the life that was keeping the plant alive is keeping you alive. No, as you're chewing it, you're crushing the living thing alive. It's the pulp. It's the, right. That's where it is.
So not people alive by bread and dvarim, by Dvar Hashem.
The Dvar Hashem. Here, let's read. V'hine tzei l'chadin b'mazim b'shvil chiv ha'nefesh ha'guf ikari b'shvil chayes ha'guf for the body. Shari chayes ha'nefesh yesh negam b'she'enim gosheres b'guf. The nefesh purely, one of its conditions isn't food. U'kamei shegam kodim she'yorda ha'neshama l'mata ksiv ba chay Hashem elokei Yisrael asher amalati l'fanov. The nefesh was already there. It was awake. A mendes ba'ava v'yir. V'zeu ha'chayes shelochu. וכן בצייס הנפש מהגוף, הרי הוא חי בגן עדן, ומסנג מזיו ותרס על מעמידוס החולו, ואם כן, עיקר המייכל בשביל הגוף, והנה בזה, commission is bad. ששבש וסנגס הגוף לכל הנברואים, even the גוף of בעלי חיים, הצמח, is from סבב קלאמן. וזהו שעיקר המייכל בשביל הגוף. It's the גוף, it's the סבב, that where the chayes is needed. In other words, what's the problem of joining the guf with the nefesh? The biggest problem is in the guf, because the guf is from Seviv. So kivan shegam is havos guf hamaychel. Since the food is also from Seviv, nimin ha'chay v'atzameach, hu mibchinas ha'seviv kalam in guf adam, k'moy guf adam, v'zeu gam, masha ha'chayis sh'ayidei ha'maychel hu mi guf ha'maychel, v'loi me ha'chayis sh'boy. So first you gotta slaughter the animal. That's when you take nourishment. It's no longer alive, the plant. And you chew it up. Meaning, if you don't chew it up properly, it's not going to sustain you. That's when it satisfies. Tamadover, commission is by a little. Shegid laguf mikatnas lagavos is from a malikalam. Verak etzem chemer aguf shoshim chenesev kalam. So it's the matter. It's the yesh from the iron, that's what's getting sustained. When there's ein by mimchinas mamalik alam, and you remove, there's no potential for growth anymore.
But if it's seeds, they have potential to grow.
So you have to chew it up.
To sustain me.
You swallow it.
That's why they say if you eat the seeds, you'll have a tree coming.
Azai. That's when it could be machayim. Okay. 375, we're making progress. So building blocks, the Rebbe, Mesudik, Tzarech Leimar. Ta'af shegam gufa adam hu mebchina seviv kol almin. It's true. The guf is from seviv. But mikol mokem, yesh yisrain beguf ha-meichel lagabi gufa adam. Food is still more deeply connected with seviv. Shehu b'bchinas nailis yoser b'seviv kol almin gufa. Now, remember that it's really problematic. The whole point of Seviv is that there's no Milo Mata. Right? So what does it mean?
There's more pnimius of it.
That it's more
concentrated.
Right? That's why we have to go back to that mushal. The higher something is, the lower it falls. In Chassidus, there's an idea. You want the AC on a little bit? No, you're comfortable? Okay. In Chassidus, there's an idea that there are, and like when we talk about Tzimtzum and the Eiris and whatever it is, let's say there's Eir in Atzilus, and in Atzilus he's Ein Sof, but he's planning his Gevul arrival into Biyah. In the source, right? Whatever, you need a muscle for it. I mean, right? You have a person who's really they're a world. The king got up and got dressed up in peasant clothes. The king is the king. So it could be that in Seviv Kalalman everything is there's no Milo Mata, but when it reaches out of
bottleneck.
Bottleneck
area to exit.
No, we have to understand how it is that when it emerges from it, there's different levels of potency.
In the marker,
the way it's pushed out of, right, the different levels. There's a Gemara. There's an interesting Gemara. There's a Gemara Haggadah that one of the kings in the Beis Hamikdash had a flow of water, right? They had the shiluach, whatever it was, the water that went through. So the opening was very small, and it was small, so it was like a hose, right? So there was some force, there was some pressure. So he commanded them to widen the opening. There'll be more water, and then what happened? He widened it, and then right. So the water was it became weaker, right?
The voice teachers too.
Right.
Exactly.
So the king said to make it smaller, right? So in the projection from Seviv, right, when it's forced out of Seviv, depending on the power or whatever it is, so there are higher levels. That's how we should imagine the muscle of Kol HaGavaya B'Yeser, Neifel Lamata Yeser. In the Neifel, in the Nefila, right, it's a narrower opening, so when it's more concentrated, it went to a farther place. Akoponim, so V'lachein, so because the Guf HaMeichel is higher, in Seviv, V'lachein, the third line from the top, B'keach HaMeichel, Lahachis, is Guf HaAdam. Ayidei Zeh Shepeil Kishur HaNefesh B'Guf. Yuvan Api Masha Kosu, Kilei Ala Lechem Levad, Yichi Adam, Kalkam Meitzim Pi Hashem Yichi Adam. Before we look at the Teira L'Arizal, that referring to the Meitzim Pi Hashem and the Meichel, which is Machayas Adam, the Chorei Nemu. Lama Tzarech Adam Liyasnizim Me'ametzim Pi Hashem Shuvim Meichel Dafka, he has his own Pi Hashem. V'loi Maspik, why is it insufficient that he has a Meitzim Pi Hashem? Shebemayim Menas Adam. Acheininu, She'sheiresh HaMeichel Ugavei Yisem She'sheiresh Adam. Why? She'sheiresh Adam M'chinas HaTikun. She'sheiresh HaMeichel M'chinas HaTikun, She'kadam L'Tikun. What does it mean?
To keep the neshama inside.
Really, he just went back a little bit on what he said before.
Yeah, because before he said there's the neshama to keep them together.
And that the guf is also toilet. The Adam, the tikkun of Adam, right? Is the nefesh in the Adam, is the tikkun. But really, in other words, so look what he said. The Mailas Sheresh HaMeichel Hu, the Hester Pama. It's not true that the Michael has a Maila, but you don't see the Maila because it's B'derech Richuk. Shezeu Mashen Nofa, B'shviris HaKelim. Oh, וגם עניין זה, ששרש הגוף הוא מבחינת הסבב כל העלמין, so now he comes back, is also מבחינת הלם. ולכן, עיקר המשכוסי הוא, ומטה ביסר. That's why the human being keeps pulling lower behind. שבחינת די ממצמי החי שלמטה מהאדם, שורשי, מבחינת ניילס יסר, in סבב כל העלמין גופה. וכל הדבר יסר ירד למטה יסר. And that's why, ולכן, צריך האדם לקבל חיוסי מדמם צמא החי דווקא, and that's the Seder, בכלולוס הדמם צמא החי, שכל אחד מהם אינו צריך לבחינה של המיילו ממנו, they don't, שהדמם אינו צריך לצמח, הצמח אינו צריך לחי, החי אינו צריך למדבר. In other words, I'm sorry to put in something from popular culture. Sorry, just for what is he saying here? If the people say nowadays that women, they don't need men. Yeah, behemoths don't need people. The sand doesn't need the plants. If you're lower than something, then you don't need it. The whole point, Chassidus is saying that they're higher. If you're higher, then you're dependent. The Tzemeach needs the daemon. The Chai needs the right? So it's not, dependency in this case is not a weakness.
It's more complicated, something which needs parts. More complicated, needs more parts from the bottom to sustain.
Right, because it brings elevation. Mm-hmm. In other words, what's the tikkun of man in the woman? The tikkun of daimon is in Tzemeach. Right, that's why when man is alone, so he becomes toihu.
But in Tanya says, if you eat, your yes grow. So like it's accumulate over the years. You don't become more spiritual, you become more godless.
It's such a mess.
I just want to say, Benegay, that line in Tanya, the question is, what's the role of avodah? Right? In other words, if a person thinks that by them it's status quo. So Alter Rebbe says there's no status quo. You're going lower. But if a person is working on themselves. You see, the Chassidim, they didn't talk. So it's very hard to see. It's very hard to put in words what does avodah look like.
What's their struggle versus avodah?
Right. What the struggle looks like. In other words, I can tell you what happens when the Nefesh Habahamis gets stronger with age. You're more lazy, right? What does it? You know what does it mean?
What happens when you let go?
What does it mean when a yid that's 80 years old still gets up and says Kishmish Alamita 2 o'clock in the morning, an hour, 2 hours, standing? You know what I mean? What does it take? You know, like I repeat that word, even though it's not from a chassid, the Chafetz Chaim when he was older. In other words, he was 90s. You know, he lived into his 90s, and he was like immobile. And he said to his Gabbai, maybe I'm just lazy. Right? In other words, for someone to be so in such a continuous In other words, for most people, they slow down before their body really slows down. You know which one? You know, the person that's like, you know, like when Rabbi Mendel, you know, like, my feet, no. The feet is gay, right? The feet are not walking. No, come. Just to be in a constant, to be 85 years old and to be careful in yichud at the highest level, not to be alone with a woman and mamish, you know, like whatever. It's Al-Kopanim, that was a maimer amuzgir, that it's not a chasarn to be dependent. Why is there dependence? Because that's how we elevate. The tzemeach elevates the diamond, etc., etc. Ela adarab, שהצמח מקבל מהדמם, החי מהצמח, והאדם מצמח וחי, וכל זהו מצד בחינס הסבב כל העמים, שהמשוחסי בהלם מהתחתן דווקא. All of this happens in Seviv. So this also goes back to, you know, it's very nuanced. In other words, the Chai is higher than the Adam, than the Medaber. It's one grade, but that's all it takes. One, that's it. One, okay. In other words, when a person, whatever, akopon, yeah, all the drashas. Let's see if we can learn a little bit more Vov. Now, it's like the question is going to fall away. If the whole point, why is everything that comes from Seviv has a higher shaylish? Why? Because Seviv is hidden. In other words, why can't it be b'derech hishtalshelus? Because yesh me'ayin, it's hidden. When Mashiach comes, that whole problem goes away. The heaven opens. It's all right now. It's okay for the creation to see his source.
Oh, you said something.
You understand? So now I don't need food anymore. I can have my direct connection.
But then we're not going to see ourselves as a Messias anymore. How are we going to have a body?
So now you have a shaila, but so how are we going to remain a Messias?
Yeah.
In other words, if we see our source, so we're all bottled. Okay, so hold the shaila. Let's take a look. But then you see what happens then? You don't need a
Wow.
Let's see. Kol zehu rak achshav. She'amshachas b'chinas ha'seviv kalam hi behelem behester ponim. Anything that we get from seviv, we can't see, right? It's indirect. The efsher she'aguf yikabel b'chinas ha'seviv kalam ki im haydei slapshusei behelem b'levush gas. The derem tzemech ha'medaber. It gets hidden in other where there's even more energy. But the light has to upon him cloud, Seviv will shine forth. Azai, Yichi Aguf, B'chinas HaSeviv Kalamin, B'liam Tzos L'vush Tzemechai. We no longer need to introduce, we don't have to take pills anymore. Not only human beings, the whole world, the earth. Kemaimer hakoil hoya mina offer afilu galgal hachama. Hine ha'oretz hagashmis. Im kol anivroim hagashmim shehoya mina offer, which is like the ultimate symbolism of yesh me'ayin. Right? Because it just grows out of the earth. Everything that comes yeh bohem deya liyos es havaya. To open up, to be bottled, al derech es hatofel. The Gemara says, it says in the Pasuk, v'rachatz es b'soroi. So the hair, whatever's bottled, it's toughful to your body. It includes whatever's tafel to your bani. So the word es means secondary.
Es labes tzachicha gadol.
We learned this maamar. You remember this maamar? There's a maamar that we learn sometimes around Gimel Tammuz. Yehi Hashem Elokeinu
That's
imonu.
when he's mentioned this.
Right? Hashem should be with us like He was with our ancestors. The Friedrich Rebbe, there was a sicha, even though we're not like them.
The difference between im and es.
Right. So there he explains that imonu with is also a shame, secondary, and es is also secondary, different level. Yeah.
But es is more tough.
Yeah. Hainu liyas tofel ubatul la'avaya, to be secondary to Hashem. Shehu habitul the das elim. Das is from Yeshiva, you think? That no. You hear Hashem Elokeinu?
This is my
Okay. Good. So you hear Hashem Elokeinu. So he says, Hainu. So to be tough, shehu habitul the das elyon shemitzad gilui v'chines hasei v'kolam. Okay, mamish. And we're going to turn a page. Oh, okay, yodua ha'hefesh. You know, there's a difference. There are two psukim. Yiru mei Hashem, right? Like we say in benching. Yiru es Hashem. Yiru es Hashem, Kedoshah, right? And Yiru mei Hashem. What's the difference to be in awe of and es? What's the difference? Yiru mei Hashem or Yiru es Hashem? What's the difference? Yiru mei Hashem is bitlayesh, mitzad mamalik olam, recognizing, I understand that there's something greater than me. So I evaluated, I understand, I learned about it, I get it. Yeah. Yiru es Hashem is bittul b'mitzias.
I'm the S.
Shem mitzad b'chines hasei v'kolamim. Completely overwhelmed, shock. That's why in the pasuk about Mashiach's coming it says, because it's also that level of bittul. This is the meaning of the pasuk. Hashem echad. Everything will be one. Everything will be united with Hashem in unity. There are two shemes, like we say every day in davening. We say Hashem, Kel Rachum B'Chanun. Hashem twice. There's two shemes. And like we say, Vayikra Havaya. Yeah, Vayavoy Hashem Aponov Vayikra Hashem. There's Havaya de la Elo and Havaya de la Sata. Havaya de la Sata, the lowered level of Havaya, is Miloshem Nahava. Hashem, the Creator. Meaning, he's already connected with the world. And then there's Havaya de la Elo, which transcends time and space. Miloshem Hoya Hoyve V'yiyah Ke'echad. Past, present, and future, all at the same time. The Achshav, nowadays, before the revelation of Mashiach, there's a psik, there's a bar between the two Hashems. When you're laying in the Torah, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun, there's a break.
It's right. I wanna.
There's sik, there's time up, there's a line, psik, beinayu. What does this mean in our service of Hashem? Complete. Not reckon. The world is not a Metzias. The Rebbe sent me a shlichus. I come into the city, it belongs to me. The mayor of the city, his job. That's why he's there. He's going to serve the Chabad rabbi.
They come from like they talk like that.
That's our body to
They didn't even have.
That's it. Yichud Eloh. That we work. Skafia. you have to accept there are challenges in the world. I have to remind myself a few times a day that everything is from Hashem. Although there is a connection between these two levels, there is a little bit of a merger. This is also something we learned in the Maamar of the Rebbe, another Maamar. It wasn't that long ago, maybe around Rosh Hashanah time. I have to remember which Maamar it was that we learned. The Rebbe explains basically to be a Jew, to believe in God, really, there's a core of a belief. That's the foundation of everything that's really Yichudei Lo. In other words, when a person says, I believe in Hashem, believing in Hashem is everywhere. We're all nothing. The foundation, you say, well, it's hard for me I can't live that. It's too much for me. Okay, baby steps. But really, Yichudei Tato is laying on a foundation. Why am I working on myself to be closer to Hashem? And why is it that when you talk to the average chassid, he feels like he's falling short?
Because everything is one.
Because really, Yichudei Lo is ringing in the back. because in the back of his mind, really, the whole world, this is all a clownery. This is all, Hashem is really, that's it. But I enjoyed my Gashmias.
My Zaydi used to say, ich habe love the ganze Leben, aber ich love the Memes.
Good. So there's a beautiful Maamar that Rebbe explains why it is that Yichudei Tato leads to Yichudei Lo. Because really, the foundation of Yichudei Tato really is Yichudei Lo.
Because that's the truth.
In other words, even though Yichudei Tato is in behavior, let's go back for a second. Like the Mishnah says, you have to be humble before every person.
Mm-hmm.
So the simple way of learning it is that you should act with humility. Hold open the door. Right? The Alter Rebbe says, no, you actually are. It's not about holding the door. You learn better Glam Netanya. Unbelievable the way Alter Rebbe lays it out. Yeah? So here he's saying, what's Yichudei Tato? Yichudei Tato is, I don't feel it, I don't this, but I'm going to act like. Again, I'll wait till I finish I'm going to go offline. Right? So, and Yichudei Lo is the the driving force behind that practice. Why do I live this way? Because it's only the Eibishter. Yeshachech, for those who joined on